the carnivore diet does not exist. Just like the ketogenic diet isn't a thing. There is no the carnivore diet. There is no the keto diet. Just like there's no the plant-based diet or the vegan diet. There are 100 different ways to do any so-called diet, right? The word diet is so played out these days and has such negative connotations, I don't even like using it. But we've got to, for simplicity's sake, and because that's what most people call these things. Now, when I say that the carnivore diet doesn't exist, I don't mean that we're in some alternate Twilight Zone universe dreamed up by all these vegan YouTubers who are so freaked out and triggered by everybody from their little flock leaving veganism going to a carnivore diet. I don't mean that. What I mean is there's no one carnivore diet. There are 100 different ways of doing it. Now, the carnivore diet was just recently named, right? We saw a massive increase in people researching and utilizing zero carbohydrate diets with the rise of the ketogenic diet. All right, so about 4 or 5 years ago, keto started becoming really popular. Just the last 2 years, we've seen an explosion in popularity of this low carbohydrate approach for fat loss, metabolic health, neurological health, for regaining metabolic flexibility, the ability to burn either fat or glucose efficiently. And this has led people to explore even deeper. Now, about 4 years ago, I talked to my friend Andrew Scarborough. If you search on my channel for Andrew Scarborough, you'll find some talks that we had several years ago concerning his version of a carnivore diet, which was called, at that time, we called it a zero carb diet. There were a few websites out there. There were a few blogs. I think Zero Carb Zen was one of them. But not that many people were even using these terms. Andrew Scarborough was using a zero carb ketogenic diet as a treatment for epilepsy after having a massive brain tumor removed. So he was using this as an adjunct therapy for cancer treatment. His cancer still has not returned. His neurological proficiency has increased dramatically over the last few years. As you can see from the first videos when we spoke to now, his speed at which he can speak with, I can't even make a sentence today. The speed that he speaks, the speed of his speech, his mental proficiency, his presence in body and in mind are greatly improved over the years. So he is getting major neurological healing, and in his brain scans it shows that the scarring is decreasing and it is healing. Now, he was using a zero carbohydrate approach because he found that a straight ketogenic diet wasn't enough to keep his epileptic seizures at bay. He found that he was very sensitive, especially to salicylates. So he wasn't able to eat really any plants in his diet, and he found himself on basically a diet of all animal foods. He was eating organs. He really liked sheep's or lamb's brain. He was eating a lot of fatty cuts of meat. He was even eating insects at the time. Now, that hasn't caught on yet. The insect part of it hasn't caught on yet, but a lot of people nowadays are using zero carbohydrate diets and even including organ meats in the diet. Now, we've been promoting eating organs for a long time. When we first started getting into high-fat nutrition, we were reading books like Weston A. Price's Nutrition and Physical Degeneration, and implementing a lot of the principles there, implementing a lot of these ancestral diets where they're focusing on using the whole animal. That makes it both affordable and more fun and more diverse, and you're getting a more wide array of micronutrients, and you're able to get fat-soluble vitamins in quantities that you're not going to find in other parts of the animal. So foods like liver have more vitamin A than any other piece of the animal. So we've been talking about this approach for quite a while. Me, myself, I didn't go and start doing a zero-carb diet right after talking to Andrew. But I have found myself over the years gravitating more towards a simplistic approach, and I find that the vegetables just aren't necessary for me. So for the last year and a half, I've had very few vegetables at all in the diet, not doing it dogmatically, not trying to be strict carnivore or do what I would consider the carnivore diet, because I understand that there's nuance to this. There's 100 ways of doing it. Now, the carnivore diet was just named recently after it started gaining popularity from certain public figures like Dr. Sean Baker, talking about his use of just an all-meat diet and how he was performing better, feeling better, and doing better than ever on a zero-carb ketogenic style approach where he's just eating as much meat as he wants. So he wasn't concerned with ketones like Andrew was. He's just eating ribeyes to satiety. For him, that was the easiest way to go about it. He had come upon people like Shalene and Joe Anderson. Now, the Anderson family have been doing a zero-carb diet for like 20 years. Shalene Anderson has been, she was diagnosed with chronic Lyme's disease, and she's had zero symptoms for the last 2 decades, and they raised 2 children on a zero-carbohydrate diet, and they're eating mostly just muscle meat. I think they do occasionally have fish. They're not intentionally eating organs, and they don't even focus on grass-fed. So we've been talking about, we like to promote grass-fed, restorative agriculture, locally produced foods. They're not concerned with that at all. They're just eating supermarket meat and getting fantastic results. So there are so many different ways of going about this that can be effective and very, very beneficial to many people. And just because I promote grass-fed and I believe it's much better for local communities, for our environment. I don't like supporting corporations like Monsanto and Cargill, who are openly now trying to restrict our access to meat by funding companies, by these NGOs like Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, funding companies like Memphis Meats, cell-cultured meats, and then things like the Beyond Burger and the Impossible Burger. They're basically made up of GMO, soy, and wheat. So, I don't like promoting grain-fed beef, but for many people it's all they can afford. So I will never bash people that are eating the grain-finished beef. That grain-finished beef is spending most of its life on pasture. A lot of these points are brought up by Dr. Sean Baker, who does a really good job actually defending grain-finished beef. I personally don't like it. I don't like to promote it, but there are people out there getting very good results with it. Alright, so there are many different ways of doing a carnivore diet. There are people out there who say, if you don't eat raw meat exclusively, you're a freaking dummy. Right? I don't necessarily agree with that, although I do find myself gravitating towards raw meat very often. It's very easily digestible, and I do see benefits to many people consuming almost exclusively raw meat. I've seen many people turn around major health issues and autoimmune conditions using that approach. There are other people out there who just, talk about Weston A. Price's information, repackage it, and pretend it's their own. There are 100 different bloggers, vloggers, YouTubers out there trying to make a name for themselves promoting these types of diets. It's going through a major upswell of popularity. The carnivore diet has been trending big the last year. And you see a lot of former vegans getting into a carnivore diet after trashing their gut health, eating a soylent slop diet being promoted by these emaciated ideologues out there on YouTube. Dudes like Durian Rider, Freely, promoting these insane fruitarian diets and wrecking people's health. A lot of people's digestive issues get so bad, and many of us have grown up taking antibiotics and trashing our gut microbiome already, but then they start eating this diet that's just super high in fruit. Now people are getting fungal overgrowth. People are getting major sensitivities, just like Andrew Scarborough, to foods like salicylates, oxalate-rich plants. People are eating a lot of lectins, a lot of these anti-nutrients in the grains, right? Which Weston Price talks about, the anti-nutritive factors of a lot of these modern foods, and how these indigenous societies that were eating plant foods would all have specific ways of preparing them to make them bioavailable and non-toxic to the human body. So a lot of these former vegans are looking for refuge. They're finding out that a zero-carbohydrate approach or a more carnivorous style diet, for many of these people, is all that they're able to eat without getting symptoms. We've got people like Michaela Peterson, who's eating a carnivore diet. She adds a lot of fat. She adds tallow. She likes to make really fatty cuts of meat. So she's eating essentially a ketogenic carnivorous diet. She's not chasing ketones. She's keeping it simple. She's eating meat to satiety while adding tallow, adding fat, in order to balance out that protein. All right? Because if you just eat lean protein, you're not giving yourself a sufficient energy source. And she's not trying to lose weight. She's recovering from autoimmune conditions and doing very well. She's got a YouTube channel now as well. I highly suggest you check it out. So there's so many different ways of doing a carnivorous diet, right? I mean, look, how about this? So today, and for about the last week, we've got this seasonal change. We had some locally available raw honey, which we get here seasonally in the Andes, right? And it's an amazing high quality honey from way up in the mountains there, where these bees are not in access with any modern agricultural foods. They don't have any pesticides that they're exposed to, and it's an amazing food. Is this a carnivore food? Well, it's processed by animals, much like butter, right? I like to add butter to my steaks. Is that carnivore? Is that strict carnivore? To some people, no. To some people, if you ever have a little bit of olive oil, that's not carnivore. Right? The other day, I had some sardines and olive oil. And I'm not worried about dogma here. I'm worried about what works. There is no the carnivore diet, nor should everybody who starts getting into carnivorous diet just do it strictly this way. Or just like Tristan says, or just like this other person on YouTube says, or you're an idiot. Right? We've seen these zealots in the keto world for years. Right? They come with the territory. People latch onto an idea, they make an idol out of it. They make an idol out of themselves. Start faking it till they make it on social media, pretending like their way is the only way, while not discussing the pitfalls in their approach, while not discussing the nuances and the different ways of doing anything, and how different strokes for different folks in diet is how it goes. Right? So there's no the carnivore diet. Today, I had some honey with some yogurt that was made with locally produced milk. Oh my goodness. Dairy. Some people say you can't do dairy on carnivore. Some people say no eggs on carnivore, while others are enjoying having raw egg yolks, which I actually did have some raw egg yolks this morning too, along with my yogurt and honey. And that was my breakfast for like the last few days. I usually find myself only able to eat carbohydrates for like a week or so, because I love meat. I start craving fatty meat, salty meat in the morning. So then I transition out of it. But there are 100 different ways of doing it. So there's my version of a carnivorous carbohydrate fueled meal. Honey produced by bees, right? So you're still exploiting animals. For you sensitive vegans out there, you're still robbing those bees of their precious honey, right? In the hives that my friend keeps, that he maintains and curates himself, that he builds for these bees to live in, right? So it's so silly. There's no one way of doing carnivore. There's no one way of doing keto. You gotta figure out what works for you. And that's what we've been about exploring here on this channel for the last few years. We've been putting out content. A ketogenic diet, a ketogenic approach, a low carbohydrate approach is powerful. You know, every month when we do our Keto and Carnivore Collective, which we actually had to tack on the word carnivore because we've had at least 15% of people recently in our Keto and Carnivore group coaching. We've had at least 15% of people interested in a carnivorous style approach. Many people who do keto find that it's just not quite enough. They might have food sensitivities that they don't know about. They might be getting symptoms of digestive disturbances or just low energy, joint pain, stuff like that they're just not getting rid of. And where a carnivore style, where keto doesn't quite get them to where they want to go, a carnivore style approach can get them past that last barrier. You're doing an elimination diet that essentially removes all possible irritants. Then you can start adding things back slowly to see what you might be sensitive to. Some people like Michaela Peterson are finding that even after a long time on carnivore, they're still sensitive to a lot of these foods. All right, not able to add them back. I've seen many people be able to add back certain foods very effectively. With very intense autoimmune conditions, many people do find, though, that more of a strict carnivore approach where you're eating animal foods, especially including organs, fatty cuts of meat, that works very well. The Paleo Medicina group in Hungary, in fact, which I forgot to mention in the last few carnivore videos I did, are Dr. Csaba Toth and Sophia Clements are doing incredible work concerning a carnivorous-style ketogenic diet, which they call a Paleolithic ketogenic diet, as treatment for many chronic diseases. They're using it as treatment for cancers, for cancer patients. They've gotten several type 1 diabetics off insulin completely using this approach. And they're getting incredible results with it. And it's basically a carnivorous style diet that includes lots of organ meats. And they've been doing research in this for years. So there are a lot of different ways of doing it. There's no one route. What we found with our Keto and Carnivore Collective, a lot of people are getting benefits from this carnivore style keto diet. A lot of people are getting benefits from, including nutrient-dense foods like organs, eating heart, liver, bone marrow. And that's why we have a whole section in our Ketogenic Edge cookbook called the odd bits section. And that's why we've been harping on about the importance of organ meats and how cool it is to include them, because oftentimes they're incredibly affordable. Now, in a lot of these yuppie areas like San Francisco, it could be difficult to find them now because you get the Silicon Valley crowd tuning into content like this, the biohackers. And they're going into places like Whole Foods and they're paying $13 a pound for bones to make bone broth. Now, if you go to a local butcher or get in contact with some local producers within your county, which you can often find on Craigslist or from websites like Cowshare, or is it Cowshare? I forget. We got some links in the description down below for some of these resources that can help you in the U.S. to source locally produced animals. These things are in higher demand, though. Right? Whereas butchers used to bring home the livers themselves because nobody was asking for these organs, now they're finding that a lot of people are becoming interested in it and they fly off the shelves. So that's a great thing for people's health and well-being. Not such a great thing for the price of organs in certain areas, but you could still get them very affordably and they cost less than a grass-fed ribeye. So including foods like this is really beneficial for a lot of people. That's why we included a whole section on organ meats in the Ketogenic Edge cookbook, which is available in print now. There's a link down in the description below. So there's no one way of doing carnivore. There's no one way of doing keto. There's no the ketogenic diet. You've got Quest Bar Keto. You got people eating microwave Quest Bar pizzas, making peanut butter aspartame microwave cupcakes, and calling it keto. Yeah, they'll still be in ketosis. They might still get some benefits, more so than on a standard American diet or on a nutrient-depleted vegan diet. But there's 100 different ways of going about it. You've got a nutrient-dense, whole, unrefined ketogenic diet based around animal fats and proteins with optional vegetables like we like to teach. So, many different ways of going about it. No one-size-fits-all, no cookie-cutter dogma of this is the one way to do it. Figure out what works for you. Quit worrying about what the zealots on YouTube, on social media, and Facebook groups are telling you. All right, you got all these Facebook groups out there, poison in the well, people trying to make a name for themselves, faking it till they make it, telling you this is the only way to do it. Everyone else sucks. Right? Everyone else is an idiot. Just listen to me. I'm your guy. I'm your girl. Now question everything. Question the information I put out. Question the information you're receiving, test what works for you, and figure out how your body can survive and thrive in whichever dietary pathway you choose, because it's got to be a lifestyle, not a diet. If you want to make progress with health, with your physique, you've got to maintain the habits that form the body. And we're way more than what we eat. Natural sunlight, what we've been talking about for years here. Dudes, you want to get your testosterone up? Rub your frickin' balls on the sun. I'm dead serious. It works. I'm talking about red light therapy as well, which is a more targeted and powerful way of increasing testosterone using specific frequencies of light. But you get those frequencies of light from the sun. The sun's not just vitamin D. You can't supplement the sunlight with vitamin D. You can't go get in a tanning bed and think that that's going to do it for you. All right, microwave yourself in a damn tanning bed is not the same as getting outside in the sun. You know, getting sufficient sleep, getting your circadian rhythm right. Those are all things we like to work on with clients, and we do private coaching, which I've decreased the amount of private coaching clients that I take on. So if you are interested in coaching, we still do take on clients, but not as many, because we like to direct people towards the Keto and Carnivore Collective, which gives you much more time with us. And we do 2 live interactive voice chats per week. One of them's a lesson, one's a live Q&A. And we have a Discord server, which gives you community support. So we do that every month. We get a new group every month. The next one's starting December 9th. I know the January one's probably going to fill up quickly. We try to top it out at 50 people. We usually end up between 30 and 50 participants in each group. The next one's going to be December 9th through I think January 6th. Then after that, we'll start the January Keto and Carnivore Collective. We've been doing it every month. But we work on things that go beyond just diet. Right? Getting your circadian rhythm right. Reducing inflammation using other methods other than just the food you eat. Because we're way more than what we eat. And there's way more than just the carnivore diet. We got 100 different ways of going about carnivore and keto. You got to find what works for you in your specific situation. So if you're interested in more, if you want coaching, private coaching consultations, again, decrease the amount of clients I take on, so don't be offended if you don't get a response to that. We get a lot of emails, but we do try to answer all coaching requests, and we do suggest, instead of private coaching, unless you're really shy and you just prefer to meet with me via Skype, go for the Keto and Carnivore Collective, because you get the community aspect, you get more content, and it's just a way more fun environment. You get more time with us, more content, and the community support aspects. It's not just like a Facebook group. We use a Discord server, a live Discord server. We do live voice chats, and you're always able to jump in a live voice chat and talk with each other and support each other and share your experiences, your triumphs, as well as the lessons you learn through the difficulties, through the so-called failures. You get to share that with each other. So it's a really fun way of going about it. Anyways, no one carnivore diet. The carnivore diet doesn't exist, just like the keto diet doesn't exist, just like the vegan diet doesn't exist. There's 100 different brands of zealotry pumping out information on their pet theory on how all these diets work. We're about taking a holistic approach to diet and lifestyle and figuring out what works for you and your individual situation. So get off social media, get off freaking Facebook, kill your Facebook account, close your damn Facebook account, detox off the social media, get out there in the real world, under the light that man didn't make, and go live.